I'm Alexis,
And I'm Kim.
and this is the Whatcha Watchin podcast. And today we're going to be talking about the Oscars, who won, who didn't win, who should have been nominated that wasn't. We're going to talk about Shazam 2. We're going to talk about 65, Adam Driver versus Dinosaurs, John Wick, and all sorts of other stuff we watched. So let's just get started right away here. The Oscars. A huge thing. The movie's biggest night.
Yes.
A lot was going on. And everything everywhere just sort of not necessarily clean sweep because it wasn't a fully clean sweep, but pretty much a clean sweep. Kim, what did you
There
think
was
about
7 of
that?
11.
Yeah, I mean, significant for sure.
This Oscars kept me on my toes because it started out, you began in the night. It's like, okay, everything everywhere all at once is there. And then it disappeared for a long stretch, long enough to go, ooh, is there going to be a surprise? Ooh, are we going to be shocked? And then it came roaring back. I have been on the record in terms of being I was not a huge fan of Everything Everywhere All at Once. I I don't know if I didn't get it, if it wasn't for me. I can appreciate the love. I mean, I was sobbing through, a couple of those speeches at the Oscars. I understand the appeal, but the movie just it did not make my top 10. I will admit it. And it was not, I don't think I can say I would have gone that direction. I'm very torn with how this year's Oscars went.
Yeah, I think for me, I really liked Everything Everywhere. I thought it was really good, but I think I'm almost wondering if it suffered from that thing where there becomes such a front runner movie, and it's such the thing that everyone is constantly saying, "Oh my God, this is the best movie of the year. This is the best movie I've ever seen. This is the most amazing thing." And by the time the Oscars rolls around, you're so tired of like hearing how great it is that you're kind of like, "It's not that great." And I'm wondering if it's like I wonder if it's suffering from that. Where is it that it is really good? We just feel kind of like, I'm tired of hearing about how great this movie is. Or is it that I know for some people it was such a meaningful movie, and I think that that's wonderful. I think the story was really like emotional. I think all the performances were super solid. But I agree with you. I feel like I don't think it was my favorite movie of the year. I think it was really good, but I don't know if it was necessarily my favorite one. But I'm Psycho. I loved RRR. That was my favorite movie of the year, and we all know that that was not going to be like the Best Picture winner with stuff like The Fabelmans and all that in the running. But I think I think it's like I liked it a lot, but I don't know that it was this like revolutionary experience in terms of watching. Certainly in terms of like representation and storytelling and like what like the overall themes. But I don't know. I'm kind of with you where like, is this the best movie of the year? And I'm not 100% on that. But I also feel like Tar was like underrepresented. Tar to me was fantastic. And I could see where, your average viewer would be like, I don't know, it's a movie about some lady. What? This is boring. It's a lady talking. And literally like women talking was up there. But I feel like Tar for me was so captivating for a subject matter that should not really interest me at all. And that was a greater accomplishment. Everything Everywhere was subject matter that I should be interested in. It was fun, it was interesting, it was sci-fi, but in like a very indie kind of way. And yet something like Tar that's like, what if this pretentious composer, and I'm sucked into the story and I'm fully engaged, even though it's long and all that.
I mean, just looking at these Best Picture nominees, it covered so much ground this year, which is a step in the right direction for this award ceremony, because we all know the running joke of Oscar bait and how all Oscar movies look exactly the same. And I mean, looking at this year, we have Avatar, which in previous years, I don't know if that would have necessarily been nominated. Top Gun, that would not have been nominated. You've got your Oscar pictures, Women Talking, Triangle of Sadness, Tar, Fabelmans. Banshees is somewhere in there too. Elvis Baz Luhrmann would that man does not do Oscar pictures. He's in a land all his own, and more power to Baz, and then Everything Everywhere, which there was a butt plug scene. There's dildos, there's hot dog fingers. This is not Oscar bait.
Yeah, totally.
And he's stretch. And I think I lost it. Maybe I just tired of the multiverse watching it. I was reminded of Doctor Strange. I was reminded of Spider-Man. I was thinking about every single time we've talked about the multiverse in movies in the last 2 years. And yes, we're quirky. Yes, multiverse, weird, trippy, next.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the multiverse thing, it's interesting because like it is the best execution of a multiverse compared to what we're getting from Marvel. But it's also kind of like, I wonder if the concept of that is something that we're just getting kind of tired of. So even if you execute it really well and artfully and interesting, are we just kind of like, oh God, no more multiverse. I can't with more multiverse stuff.
I would believe that. I mean, because that was the first place my head went. Even my ambivalence is the wrong word, but my not even apathy, but my just kind of my meh on that movie didn't stop the power of those speeches. Watching this crew, this incredibly young crew, this people who had careers and these comebacks and the passion that surrounded this movie. That's the power of this film right there. You know, whatever you feel about it, that had me crying almost the entire Oscars in various places because it was so powerful.
Yeah, I think it's funny. It's like, even if I didn't think the movie was my favorite of the year, I think the performances and the people who made it were all like so deserving of their awards.
Yes.
And it was wonderful to hear their speeches and to just like really, it felt like for the first time at this year's Oscars, we were trying to like award people who were just like really good people who we liked. And I know that that's like a weird, like, it sounds like, oh, I guess we're just giving the awards to who we liked. But I actually think that's a really good thing because there are so many people like Brendan Fraser, like Ke Huy Quan, that are just like constantly overlooked, or people that really do deserve a lot more credit than they get. And it's like, you know, like Steven Spielberg doesn't need another Oscar. And people who are here all the time that are constant Oscar winners, like I liked how many sort of like first time people or like comeback kings or whatever that we had that were winning these awards, because it was like, yeah, we do need to kind of start freshening up who we consider to be like award contenders.
This year was kind of a catch-up year for we gave a lot of career awards, especially in the acting.
Definitely.
You've got Brendan Fraser. Did he deserve it for The Whale? I'm not gonna say he did. I do not believe The Whale should have been there on Oscar night. Has he been a mainstay in that industry for 20 years? Has he been a decent, kind, pleasant, adorable individual who has gone through some real shit from Hollywood? Yes, he has. Michelle Yeoh, she has been in that industry for between Hollywood, between Hong Kong, 40-year career. Ke Huy Quan, we're both millennials. We know what he meant to us in the night. You know, he was one of the first kids I recognized growing up. It was like, oh, totally. That's Short Round.
Yeah.
And whether or not it's been it's like Short Round 1. Yay! So we're catching up. We're recognizing a lot of people who have been just decent people in Hollywood, in an industry where that's not often the case.
Yeah. And I'm with you. It was also, it did kind of feel like not the Oscar bait awards. The fact that things that felt like very manufactured Oscar bait were getting passed over was kind of
the Fablemans.
Yeah. I mean, really, you and I are like probably the only two people I know that are like in the like whatever, we don't like the Fablemans club, because like everybody else I feel like is like, oh my God, I love that movie. It was so moving, and the emotional story and the family and blah, blah, blah. And you and I are the only people who were like, nah, this ain't it. Like, we're not interested. No, thanks.
They had one job, nominate the only deserving performance in that film, Paul Dano, and they did not do their one job. That's all I'm saying.
Seriously. I think that movie, it's just, if we want to talk about overrated, that to me is a very overrated movie.
Yeah.
It's like nothing against it. And if you like it, I'm happy for you. I'm happy for anyone who sees a movie and enjoys it, honestly.
Yes,
you could think that, like, you know, like Moonfall was the greatest thing you've ever seen. And if you had a really good time watching it and it was your favorite thing, I am happy for you.
Find your joy.
Exactly.
Find your joy.
Exactly. But then when we're talking about the Oscars and stuff, I just feel like I don't need Steven Spielberg's self-indulgent kind of thing as the thing that we all hold up as like, this is what all movies are. And that's where like Top Gun Maverick, problematic elements, big giant action movie, however people feel about Tom Cruise, whatever, you know, whatever's going on there. That was a fun movie. It was like a fun movie to watch. And it's, you know, to quote Harry Styles, it felt like a real movie, like a go to the theater film movie.
It's a big screen popcorn film.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what Avatar was. So that's the theatrical cinema experience.
We did kind of see, if you look at the Best Picture nominees, we do have kind of a mix between things that, like women talking, things that are these really interesting, like emotional character kind of things. And then you do have Avatar and Top Gun Maverick and Elvis, which Elvis, you could argue, does have a lot of those character study sort of elements.
I mean, it's
but
a biopic.
It's also Baz, so it's like crazy and chaotic and everything. And it has probably the weirdest Tom Hanks performance that's ever been. So
the fact that we had that getting Razzie wins, right? Didn't that win at the Razzies? So. And then Oscars, same. That's Baz. That is the epitome of Baz for you.
Totally. I'm like, I can enjoy this. And if someone says this is the worst thing I've ever seen, I can fully understand. And yep, I got it.
Like a lot more than I was expecting to. That Austin Butler performance captivated me. I was expecting to be rolling my eyes the entire time. And that found something that I was not expecting it to.
So let's see. So we had Michelle Yeoh, Queen, we stand, we love it. Excellent performance. I also think Cate Blanchett, fantastic, but I'm like, again, it's one of those things where it's like, does Cate Blanchett need more recognition at this point for being like one of the best actresses of all time?
We know how good she is.
Yeah, exactly.
We know. I mean, Tar she was the second. I'd say she'd be the other. She was the other one who could have came in.
Yeah,
because she slammed down that gauntlet with those first 10 minutes of Tar. I was absolutely captivated.
Amazing performance. And then lead actor, I feel like Brendan Fraser, but then I feel like Austin Butler and Colin Farrell. I know you like Paul Mescal. And then, I think I feel like that one was one where I would have been pretty happy with all the choices. I think we all kind of knew it was going to be Brendan Fraser. And then in the director category, I have to say, I was
shocked, man.
I know I'm always talking about how great RRR is and how much Rajamoli is like fantastic and stuff, but I would have really liked to see Rajamoli in this category because I feel like RRR is such an accomplishment. When you can do a movie that is of that huge of scale and it still hits all the emotional beats, your action is on point, it's 3 hours long and it feels shorter and tight and really great. Like, I just think that's an accomplishment, and I just think it's interesting that we did not acknowledge what an accomplishment that is.
No, RRR needed to be, in terms of, from a purely directorial standpoint, I'm going to go all film studenty here, the mise-en-scène of it all, that huge scope of that. No, he fully deserved to be in there, and I think it was a snub that he shouldn't have been.
Yeah, it's funny,
And
like with this category, it's like how much of it is really about direction and how much of it is like, well, here's the movies that are the top contenders for Best Picture, so the directors
yeah,
must be the contenders for Best Director, more so than like where the directing skills really show up.
I'm probably gonna get roasted for saying it, but McDonough, he's a solid writer. He's an incredible writer, and I think Banshees deserves the love it got in terms of performance and script. I think you could have swapped him out for Rajamouli or somebody else, because is it really that notable of direction? I don't know.
Totally.
Triangle of Sadness, I can't speak to. I didn't finish it. So there's that. But I mean, I would have thought I would have thought Stevie Baby. I would have thought Spielberg was the shoe-in for Best Director.
Yeah,
And
I was
wrong.
a little bit excited, even though I like again, I don't necessarily know that Everything Everywhere was my favorite. I was a little bit excited when it was not Steven Spielberg, because I thought like, is it really going to be Steven Spielberg? I get like we already know he's the GOAT. He's the, we get it. We already know. Do we need to like, is this the movie that showcases him as a director?
It would have been another career
level?
Award.
Exactly.
Because when was the last time he won? Private Ryan?
Yeah, I can't remember.
And so it's for one of the greatest of all time in terms of direction. He doesn't get recognized a lot, but has he been that good in the last 2 decades? Well,
exactly.
There is that. But
I mean, obviously, highlight of the evening for me, Natu winning for original song. I mean, that was like tremendous. It's so funny because when they were doing the nominations, I really love the song Dosti from RRR. I feel like that's like the stronger one in terms of the story beats and the emotion and all that, but I fully understand why they picked Natu. It's an amazing song. It's so catchy. It's exactly the kind of thing that everyone's going to be up on their feet, like it's the right choice. And I just was so thrilled. I fully screamed in my living room, like as if I'm invested in this movie myself.
Completely agree. I think that's the heart of that movie. And I have been singing that song in my head since Sunday. I mean, they probably could have given it a bigger, more fun performance, but it was just so cool to see it performed there and to see them get the recognition they deserved. And I can't complain about that choice. I would spend the entire night waiting for that. And
I would have loved to see Ram Charan and TR Jr. in the performance. I think that would have been really cool. I would have loved to see like any South Asian representation in the performance, but hey, we do what we can. like Oscars is gonna whitewash. That's sort of their whole thing. So I'm not surprised that that's what they did. But yeah. Well, what did you think? Speaking of, I mean, I think we can kind of pivot to just like the broadcast itself. How did you feel about the show? I think like to me, a good Oscar host is like it's very Arrested Development, a Milford man, children are neither seen nor heard. I feel like a good Oscar host just kind of disappears into the background and it's just sort of someone to keep it moving. There was only a couple moments where I felt like, oh God, this is so awkward and uncomfortable. The Malala situation. There was things where it was like, oh God, just let's skip this part. But overall, I felt like pretty smooth telecast. Nothing really like stood out to me as terrible. So that's probably a good sign.
I normally can't stand Kimmel. Kimmel and I do not get along. I have tweeted through Oscars before with him where the bits where he had the celebrities selling candy to the normies and throwing, I hate that stuff. I had absolutely the Malala, the clunky audience bit in hour 3 aside. I had absolutely no problem. Could it have used a few less Will Smith jokes? Yeah, probably.
But at the same time, I mean, they're only human. It's the only thing anyone talked about at the Oscars last year. It's the only thing anyone talked about at the Oscars for the past like decade. So they had to do something because they were just like, hey, guys, remember that Will Smith thing? Huh? Yeah. Remember it? And I mean, like Chris Rock has an entire comedy special about it. People have built careers off of that Will Smith slap. So I was like, yeah, I expect to hear a lot of slap jokes.
We glossed over it. Should we double back and talk supporting role, actor and
Sure.
actress in a supporting role? Because the two biggest the two, I would say, biggest ones of the night, the Brendan Fraser of it aside, there's been a lot of talk about Jamie Lee Curtis and whether or not that one was deserved. And then you've got Ki Hoi Kwan, which everybody was totally fine with. I haven't heard a single person go, no, no, no.
Yeah, I don't think there's anyone who was like, I don't think so for that. Like, everybody loves him. He's wonderful. We were all thrilled to see him win. And it was a good way to start out the show.
Barry Keoghan, though. And I'm going to botch that. I'm going to Americanize that pronunciation. He was my number one throughout this year in, again, a very small role. But after I watched that in Banshees, I said he's my pick.
Yeah, it was a really like memorable role. When I watched Banshees, that was kind of like what I took away from it, was like, damn, these like supporting performances are so strong. Like, obviously, Colin Farrell, and they're like, the performances are all good. But I think what I took away was like, damn, this is really impressive. There are those people where they get nominations and you're like, well, you're not going to get it this time, but we'll see you again. Like, you'll be here again.
Yeah.
And I think he's totally one of those people. For sure.
No, I think we have a few like that in supporting actress too. Because actress was definitely some layers, because you have Jamie Lee Curtis winning, but then Angela Bassett got a lot of love, and rightly so. I mean, Black Panther was not my favorite of those, but I can completely understand why she was there. And then you have somebody on Twitter pointed out, she's the exact same age as Jamie Lee Curtis. They have very similar careers. Those were both really career awards for relatively short performances, but I would say Angela Bassett was probably a better performance in a similar kind of part. Hong Chow, who I think was my number 2. I loved her, and she was my favorite part of The Whale, and to me she was the one part of The Whale that deserved really that nomination.
Totally agree. Yeah, I feel like with The Whale and The Menu, like Hong Chow, to me it was like the combo of The Whale and The Menu, like, damn good performances. I feel like, again, she's probably one that like, we'll see you again, you'll be here again.
Yeah. And no, I completely agree. We will see her again, because she's, as long as she keeps working. And I think Stephanie Hsu's in the same boat there too.
Yeah, that was a fantastic performance.
A real talent.
Totally. Yeah, I think like, Jamie Lee Curtis, I mean, I'm not like, that was a really strong performance. I think I was very team Angela Bassett, just because I'm always team Angela Bassett. But I think Stephanie Hsu was probably the performance from that to me was, other than Michelle Yeoh, like probably the strongest. Because that's a really a meatier role with a lot of challenging stuff to do. And I think she just really killed it. So I think if I would have picked anybody from Everything Everywhere to get it, I don't know that it would have been Jamie Lee Curtis. I think it would have been Stephanie Hsu. I
was stoked. The one time I leapt out of my chair hooting and hollering with Sarah Polley winning for adapted screenplay. She was one. I think she should have been nominated for Best Director. Women Talking was an experience. It's a beautiful film, and it should be talked about more than it is. And at least one of those Claire Foy should have been nominated, but I digress. Women were shut out in the directing categories yet again. That should have been in there. The Woman King, that should have been in there. There was a few who should have, and just at least see a woman squeak in screenplay where they don't necessarily always get their due either. It really meant something.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that movie was so overlooked, and it's so unfortunate because it's really such a strong movie. And part of me was like, the second you make a movie that's literally called Women Talking, you can basically eliminate the idea that anyone's going to watch this, because people don't tend to like women talking. So I was like, this is going to be a problem in terms of getting attention and viewership and awards recognition. And it was disappointing that did not get more love. Same with The Woman King. Like, I think The Woman King was such a strong film. I really was like, oh, Viola Davis is going to be up here. And I was very surprised that was not the case. So I think every year there are a few where it's like, Interesting, very interesting, especially with so many Best Picture nominees and so many, like
Yeah.
these are kind of broad, and yet we're kind of focusing on like the same three things in everything all the time. So it's like we could
Hmm.
open this up a little bit more.
It was her first film, but After Sun, I said I would circle back to it, and I have. After Sun should have. I mean, Paul Mescal was that performance was truly something to behold. But After Sun, brilliant script, solid direction. It was my number one, but it should have been, I think, right in there as well as one that, oh look, another woman directing a film. Oh, well, shocking.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Sure, Stevie gets in there on
Yeah.
it, on
Let's
the
make
fact
sure
of
we
his
nominate
name on a
Steven
film he didn't.
Spielberg.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly. But here's all these interesting new voices and female voices in particular, and ladies
Yeah.
directing a film? Nah.
Yes. Nah.
Exactly. So we got the Oscars. Let's talk about what other stuff we watched. So you just this week watched Shazam 2,
Hmm.
and
Yes.
I skipped it, and I had the opportunity to go, and I really debated. The day before I was like, I'm not sure about this. And I just kind of went like, I don't know if I want to sit through this, cuz I'm a little burned out. I'm superhero burnout, and I'm
Yeah.
especially DC superhero burnout cuz it's like none of this is going to matter in 5 minutes anyway. So, I'm very curious, how was Shazam 2?
So I might accidentally drop in a spoiler. So let me just say that there are a few
The whole
things that could
universe
be
doesn't
talked
matter
about.
anymore anyway, so it
True,
doesn't really matter.
true. So if you care, spoiler, 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 skip ahead if you need to. Zachary Levi and his stupid face bothers me. So this is where I came into Shazam. The first one was cute. I saw it, I reviewed it. I realized as I was sitting down to watching this, 20 minutes into the film, I had a Shazam Mandela effect. I I was watching this. I remembered two performances: Zachary Levi and his stupid face, and Zach Dylan Grazer. And I thought, Jack Dylan Grazer was baby Shazam. Because the whole premise of Shazam, he's a teenager who, when he yells Shazam, turns into a superhero. I thought Jack Dylan Grazer was the star of this film. I thought he was baby Zachary Levi. He wasn't. I had completely purged from my memory, and it took me 20 minutes into the second film that poor little Asher Angel, who was actually baby Zachary Levi, I had wiped him from my brain. I forgot that I couldn't even pick up that he was baby Shazam. Shazam was another 2.5 star superhero movie. So this is Shazam Fury of the Gods. And we jump into the Shazam universe. The staff and I forget the superhero lore. Shazam had broken it in the previous film. A trio of, I think they're demigods, show up to take the staff back, and they've got plans, played by Helen Mirren, kind of pulling the Michael Douglas and Ant-Man vibe. She doesn't seem like she quite knows what's going on there, but she's Helen Mirren, so she gives a hell of a performance. Lucy Liu, who she's Lucy Liu, so she's dynamic as well. And Rachel Zegler, who I was surprised at how much I liked her in that role. They're sisters, so even the film goes, even the film literally says, I'm not touching that age difference, because they're
Yeah.
what, 18 to 60.
Yeah.
And Shazam and his team of friends, the Philadelphia Fiascos, I believe they're called, need to take them out. And it plays with some interesting, the team up moments are great when they have everybody kind of together and they get to be teenagers in the body of superheroes. I thought it was cute, it was fun, it was a little quippy. But then they start separating people like throughout the entire thing. Jack Dylan Grazer's himself, you because he grows into Adam Brody, but you lose Adam Brody pretty quickly throughout the film, and he just stays Jack Dylan Grazer. And it felt like a film that knew things were changing, times coming up, and
Yeah.
it wasn't quite sure how to handle it. This DC's in transition. We know
Yeah.
this. We've got what, 2 or 3 DC films left in this continuity. There is Shazam going to come back? I know he's not in the initial run of films that have been announced. The third act, without giving any spoilers, it looked like they were going to do something really interesting, that they were, they were diving into the sensitivity of this finale, but then, superhero movie, there's no stakes.
Yeah.
Nothing like this can happen. So it ended up being a fully average superhero movie. It had a lot to do, and I think there were some good pieces. Zachary Levi even gets to do some emotional stuff towards the end of the film, which shocked the hell out of me. It's a one-off superhero film. We'll see how it goes. It was like 2.5 stars.
Yeah, I feel like this is totally why I skipped it, because I thought it's gonna be just sort of fine, and I can't do more just sort of fine at this point. I'm really tired of just sort of fine.
They got to get through this, and they got to get through the Flash, and then
they can start.
And then the Flash will be a whole nother challenge, but we'll see how that goes.
I'm intrigued by that, just for the sheer like, what is this and how is this going to happen, and the weirdness of it. Speaking of
Ezra
what
Miller
is this,
of it all.
Yeah, what is this and how did this happen? I watched 65. I've seriously thought about it like every single day, because I don't get how it exists. I keep trying to wrap my brain around like, but why would Adam Driver take this movie?
Yeah.
And somebody told me, like, they saw in an interview, he said, well, his son loves dinosaurs, so he wanted to do the dinosaur movie. And I'm like, okay, that's very sweet. But this still seems like a weird choice for him. It's just this weird, like, forgettable schlock. And that's not an Adam Driver movie.
No.
So it was so strange to me. I want like a Netflix docuseries on how this movie exists. I want like a serial style podcast that just does a deep dive into like what happened between like the script and the shooting and the production and the editing, and like what occurred here, because it's one of those things. This movie was shot like I think 3 years ago or something, which is interesting that they kind of have sat on it and all this. And then like the dinosaurs look like something from like Peter Jackson's King Kong. Like, what is going on here? Like, it's this weird kind of like sort of wonky, and it's kind of like just like Roland Emmerich schlock, but then it's also trying to do this stuff with like the father figure that's very like, we've seen it so much from Pedro Pascal that it's kind of a weird thing to see Adam Driver doing it, because I feel like Pedro Pascal like really nails that, and Adam Driver is a little more like intense than you need for that, but he's great in it. I mean, Adam Driver, I don't think I've ever seen Adam Driver in something and been like, oh, this is a bad performance. I just think he's like probably one of the best actors alive right now. But it's just such a weird film. Like I expected to be like, okay, well maybe I'll really lean into the schlocky parts and I'll like it, but it's kind of like too long and takes itself too seriously in some areas to really embrace that. So I would love to know, was this a focus group situation? Was this like, in editing, we tried to do something? I mean, it's a pretty short movie. Was there like an hour that they cut out that would have made this feel like we understood what they were going for? It's the most strange cinema experience I've had recently. So I'm captivated by it, probably not for the reasons that the filmmakers would want me to be, but I'm pretty interested in what the hell happened, and I would love to get like that Island of Dr. Moreau documentary, Lost Souls, something like that, but about this. I would totally watch that, and that would be my 5-star.
This came out of nowhere. Because everybody I know was looking forward, all of the critics in our little circle, we were all looking forward to seeing this film because Adam Driver is one of probably one of the greatest, if not the greatest in his generation of actors.
Definitely.
He has the capability to elevate any movie he's in, Star Wars included. He made, he he bent over backwards for that
Yeah.
role. But so to see this come along, have him in there, which is like, it's Adam Driver, it can't be bad. To have this just skate right on through
Yeah.
with no fanfare, to be quashed like that.
Yeah. It's such a weird contrast in things that I would really love to know like what happened. And the fact that they didn't screen it for press at all was where I went, "Oh, this is not a good sign." But then I thought, they did a lot when The Last Duel came out. They basically kind of buried that movie, and that's a really good movie. So I was like, maybe there's a chance this is really good and it's getting this weird, oh, we don't know how to market it or we don't know what to do or some weird thing is going on where we're burying it. And then when I watched it, I was like, yeah, no, I get it. I get why they're burying this movie. Like, I get why we're just writing this
Something
off at this
weird was
point.
going on.
Exactly. It's like, oh, this isn't a Last Duel situation where it's a strong movie that we don't know how to market. This is a movie that, yeah, we probably can just go ahead and move right on past that one.
He's picking for quirky because between that and White Noise, that's some
Yeah,
weird Adam Driver performances
totally.
in the last 3 months or so.
That's one of my favorite things about him, though, is he picks such a weird range of things. So you're never going to get the same movie twice from him. And I love that. Like, Annette was one of my favorites. I loved it. That is the weirdest movie. And yet, I just loved it. I thought it was great. It was amazing. And then at the same time, he can do like a Star Wars movie or like a rom-com or these other things. I feel like is he setting out to challenge himself all the time, because I love that and I'm here for that. And he never phones it in. He never gives a bad performance. So no matter what the movie is, it's like you can just count on Adam Driver will be great in it. Speaking of, handsome guys with dark hair, let's pivot to John Wick.
Speaking of kings.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so it was a busy viewing week for me, but everything paled to John Wick. Which I went into this. I've seen the other three, felt fine with them. They're exciting, they're fun. It's John Wick. You know what you're getting. Keanu Reeves, lots of weapons, thin script about assassins and chaos. And coming into this one, I'm like, okay, so it's back. But then 2 hours and 40 minutes, which was a shock. This film was 2 hours and 40 minutes long, which terrified me. Didn't feel it at all. So essentially, John Wick is continuing his battle after, the last few films. He's taking on the high table, to get free from the life he was in. So he just wants them to leave him alone. And that's basically it. He's coming up against a French marquis played by Bill Skarsgård, which was a little weird, Bill Skarsgård doing that accent, but Bill Skarsgård can do no wrong for me, so I was fine with that. And this marquis he wants to kill John Wick. He wants to hurt John Wick and everyone who is friends with John Wick. So he starts closing down the little assassin hotels, and John Wick is like, okay, challenge accepted, and fight. And that was basically the script. But I don't think you go to a John Wick movie for script.
Yeah, I don't think this is like best original screenplay territory here.
No. And this is the fourth film in the franchise. So that was also something that gave me a little pause, because how often does number 4 really do anything fun? But Keanu Reeves just continues to be, he's in that Brendan Fraser camp of just a decent guy.
Totally.
And there's not a lot of depth to John Wick as a character, but he's likable. And then you have a solid performance from him. Amazing direction. and auteur almost, like, in terms of how they set up the action set pieces. The color is so rich and so vivid and so interesting, and they're actually interacting with their surroundings. You've got a far more practical driven movie. There are a few moments where it's like, okay, death clearly has no meaning now. No, Keanu Reeves should not have survived that. But it was few and far between. The film is built really around three gigantic set pieces, which if you don't like video game kind of action, you're probably not going to like it, because you start out from it, one fight bleeds into another fight, bleeds into another fight, and quickly a half hour of screen time has passed. But you get Keanu Reeves with nunchucks, you get Keanu Reeves with an axe, you get him with tracer bullets that can set people on fire. But this is set up around impeccable action stunt choreography. This is one of those movies that continues the claim that stunt teams should be recognized at the Oscars. That is an art form, and they do it damn well. And how that action is shot is such a callback to the way it used to be done. Sure, these movies they're border on absurd in how these are structured, because people could not survive what John Wick goes through. So they teeter on action comedy, but in terms of pure action cinema, it was perfectly done. It taps into the Luc Besson vibe, that kind of Euro action, and stay through. There is a post-credit sequence, so those who see it. Donnie Yen I was amazed how much I liked that performance. It was incredibly done there. But it's fun. It's fun, and they're doing something that we're not often seeing in film right now. They're embracing the practical side of it too. And they're more grounded in realism than much of what we're seeing, and I think it shows.
Yeah, there is something to be said for, I can't remember, I saw a tweet that was like, have you noticed that everyone in Ant-Man doesn't interact with their surroundings at all? No one like picks up a cup or moves something because nothing is there. And then when you see a movie where
don't exist.
Exactly. Then when you see a movie where someone is actually interacting with their environment, it's like shocking and refreshing and like, what? This person interacted with their surroundings. And it's like this new concept.
Not everything has that brownish, foggy tint over it.
Well, the other thing that I watched, and I posted a TikTok about this because I love it so much, and this should come as no surprise to anyone that I loved it. But I watched Rana Naidu, the new series on Netflix, and it is basically a Hindi adaptation of Ray Donovan. But this one stars Rana Dagubati, who is like my ultimate celebrity crush. So I was very, very excited to watch it. I've been like following when is it going to be released and everything. And one thing I will say, like, I'm not normally a person who's all about the binge watch model, because I feel like you kind of forget like specific episodes. I kind of like the week to week, like HBO Disney model. But with this, I was like,
the original model.
Exactly. I was like, honey, I am very excited that I get to watch 10 episodes of this all in one weekend, because this is the kind of thing I really want to binge watch. So it's basically, Rana is like a Bollywood fixer to the stars for the rich and famous, solves all sorts of people's problems. His father, Naga, is in jail for murder, but gets released early and just comes into his life and causes chaos and drama. And he has two brothers and his wife, and he has two kids, and it's really, really good. His father is played by Venkatesh Dagubati, who's Rana's uncle, who is a gigantic superstar in Telugu cinema. And he always does these really like family friendly films. So for him to be in this movie in this series where there's like cussing and drugs and sex and all this stuff, I've seen, like, again, I'm looking from the outside perspective, but I've seen on Twitter there's been a bit of a freak out. People are a bit shook to
Oh, I
see
love it.
these two in these roles where it's just like so much adult content because it's not really their vibe, but it should be their vibe because they are both so fantastic, especially Venkatesh. I mean, like, God, it's just such a good performance. Every second that he's on screen, I'm glued to the screen. He is so charming, and then when he has to be menacing, he can be really menacing and like, but you're kind of rooting for him even though he does really fucked up stuff and like,
Mhm.
I don't know, man, like I loved it. It's one of those things I watched the whole series in the original Hindi version and then they also did a Telugu dub, which again, I don't speak Telugu, wanted to see it in the Telugu version just because, like, hey, it gives me another excuse to rewatch it again. So I'm starting it again in
Mhm.
that version. And I don't know, man. I really connected to it. I really got engaged with it. And maybe it was binge watching too that contributed to it because I could watch so many of them at once. But I really, really liked it. And I'm really hoping that they do a second season because I think there's huge potential here. I love seeing something that is outside of the box. I've watched like 85 Telugu movies in the past like 6 months or something. And
Mhm.
I love seeing something that's like, hey, let's change it up. Let's do something different. And this very much felt like that. Really
Mhm.
strong writing, really strong direction. All the performances are fantastic. So loved it. And I would highly
Awesome.
recommend say to anyone looking to have 10 hours of, really good storytelling that also features the most handsome family that you can have in the world. Here you go. Like, this is the
Netflix, you
show for
said?
you. Netflix, yeah.
Okay.
Really good,
And
very
are
strong.
they half hour or hour long
They're
episodes, or are
like
they like 2 hours? Or
47 minutes or
so
something,
a
yeah.
standard hour-long show.
Yeah, about
Okay,
that long.
perfect.
Yeah, it's good stuff, definitely worth watching for sure. This has been my struggle, is because I watched this really great thing, and it's a 10-hour thing, and now I have to watch little movies and things that are 2 hours and things that I can review, but I'm like, "Yeah, but I really wanna watch Rana Naidu again."
Oh, I've got so many that I wanna after another film we watched, I'm like, "Ooh, there's some Hugh Grant I wanna revisit, and there's some Chris Pine I wanna
Totally.
there's some other binges that I have going on that I'm like, there's not enough time in the day for all the
For
watches that
real.
could be
It's like
done."
there's too many things on my list and then inevitably, like my watch list on Letterboxd just keeps growing. Like every day I add like 4 movies. And then now I'm
Same.
not getting through movies because I'm just rewatching Rana Naidu. So it's like I need to start going through the list. Maybe I can reward myself with Rana Naidu. I'll finish a movie, give myself it'll be like the dessert of my watching time, you know? Well, we will call it there. Lovely episode. We've covered John Wick, we've covered Shazam, we've covered the Oscars, we talked about 65, we talked about Rana Naidu, and we will be back to discuss more things. We'll have Dungeons and Dragons coming up on an
Yep.
upcoming episode and some other fun stuff in there. So thank you so much for watching, listening, however you consume podcasts. Please like, comment, subscribe, all the things, share, and all that, and follow us on the socials listed in the description. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope you will join us again next time. Thanks.